Welcome to the Get Real with King Arthur show. And we're kind of doing a spin-off from last week where we got hung up on the word of foreplay, which amused the Queen quite a bit. But I meant to say foreground, one of the words that at the MLA that you will find using, like privilege and unpack. I forget a lot of the words. I haven't been to MLA for quite a while. Anyway, the whole subject of language is one we want to explore, especially bad language. Now, it's important to know slang language. Let me give an example. A friend of mine, a dear, wonderful Christian girl, reported to me that she was shacking up with her boyfriend. I said, "Do you know what you said?" She did not. She thought shacking up was dating. Well, it's much more than that, my dear friends. So it's important to know what words mean, whatever. It's also important to know that the difference between vulgarity and scientific terminology. So, when it comes to foreplay, I know at a conference, so a couple of the campers were engaged in foreplay, which got to be very dangerous, and they had to separate them. So, anyway, I don't try not to use bad language. For example, I don't like substituting for the pronoun it, S-H-I-T. Now, I can handle human excrement. I've done it. I've emptied, cleaned out latrines and slop buckets and whatnot. I can do it. But I don't care to talk about it all the time. Thank you very much. I was riding a city bus, and a man started using very, very bad language, what I call it. And another man said, "Sir, would you please stop using that language? I have my 3-year-old son with me, and I don't think he needs to be confronted with that." I certainly understand his concern, and yet the boy is going to be confronted with it willy-nilly. And that's one thing I'm amused at when parents try to hide talking about sex with their children. Well, they know more than you think they do. And I like what my aunt did. She gave me a book geared for high school young men. It was very nice. It talked about things. I knew most of it, but whatever. But anyway, using the professional language or occasionally using dirty language has its place. For example, in my memoir called The Dead One Touched Me from the Past, I talked about an incident at Mauchline, Scotland, where my traveling friend Karen and I were in the yard looking at graves. And all of a sudden she yelled out a scream, and I thought, "Oh my goodness, there's a snake." So I ran to her. What is the problem? Well, she saw on the church door the words F-U-C-K-Y-O-U. Well, now, she was familiar with that. How could one not be? But to have it on the church door was kind of shocking. Now, I'm sure the janitor will wash it off. But I said in my book, but the charge that Burns made against that church will not be washed off. I used it for that occasion. because they humiliated him before the congregation. So, and then I remember the pastor's wife, we had a Bible study, and she was encouraged the adults to talk to their children scientifically. Now, she said, you have to name the anatomical parts of the body. You don't need to be vulgar. So you need to be able to say penis. Just say it, penis, penis. Well, I thought that was very adult. But one of the members got all up in the air to use that word in the church. Well, there's nothing wrong with our bodies. God made them. Now, if you use some of the vulgar words to describe parts of the body, then you're demeaning the human body and human activity. So you need to know the clinical words for the body. And when you talk to your doctor, you don't need to say the sort of slang words. You need to use the accurate scientific words. And likewise, you don't need to be so skittish about sex. I mean, I think with your children, if you just, when they ask a question, just answer it scientifically and accurate, or if they ask a question, don't get all embarrassed and run out shrieking, oh, what am I going to tell my children? What heavens. You have to teach them to be adult about it. Now, that's true also with a word that I absolutely hate, and I would never in 1,000,000 years use it in a way to call a person of African American that word, Nigger, because it's a demeaning word. And nor would I call an African American man boy, or an African American girl, a grown-up woman, girl. That's similarly demeaning. And I won't use it, but if I'm going to talk about Huckleberry Finn, America's greatest novel, I have to use it, and you understand that people used it in those days, and it was a shame they did, but we need to know the language they used. And I'm not all nervous that, but I've never used it in talking to a member of the African American race, or anything I thought was demeaning to them. And then I think of blasphemy. Someone handed me something on his telephone, and it talked about God, and I won't even go further than that. In a scandalous, degrading way, I said, I will not listen to blasphemy, and handed it back to him. On the other hand, Jesus said, it's not what goes into you which pollutes you, it's what comes out of you. You're going to get all sorts of language. I was in the Army, after all, and worked at a meatpacking plant and went to high school. And I got, I think, exposed to about everything. And I'm glad I did. I'm glad I knew what goes on. And I remember one of my colleagues said, I know what that word means. I'm sorry, I do. I don't want to tell you what word it was. So one of the most awful words is, God damn you. That is, what a curse. What an awful thing to say to a person, to any person. But they do it so casually, don't they? And so, shucks. Well, I know the etymology of some of those, but I don't know. I don't get uptight about them. My brother, who's a minister, complained about using the F word in my book. Well, what I just put F ... something. Let's not be childish about it. And I know the word, and it doesn't scare me. So, being articulate with language, even when one is angry. I knew a pastor, and when his 10-year-old boy drowned, they came to talk to him about funeral arrangements, and he said, "Get the hell out of here." I never heard him use that before, but I sympathized with him. He was so absolutely torn in sorrow. He's a wonderful man, by the way. And so, let's be adults in our use of language. I really don't understand if people want to use blasphemy a little bit or Billingsgate, what we call low language. It doesn't faze me, but I don't think that a serious person, a Christian, ought to use language which belittles humanity ever. And this morning, while we were waiting for hot chocolate at the restaurant, suddenly there was a banging on the side of the car and someone yelling. Well, I wanted to talk to him. What's the problem? But he had disappeared. He certainly does not know how to English to say what's wrong. I would listen to him if there was something wrong. And when you know language, you can be comfortable with your doctor. You can be comfortable with your children. You can be comfortable in polite society as long as people know that you are being scientific and accurate rather than trying to get a rise out of some low referential meaning. So I'm not uptight about it all, my dear friends, but that's where I stand. Now, you're welcome to disagree. Anyway, I'm taking a trip. I hope you're having a good week.